Over 3 days I completed 10 bullet hell shoot 'em up style games for my backlog, one of which I'm thinking made my 50 favorite games of all times list. So this takes me up to 74 completions out of 431 for the Potato Backlog project. For more info on the project and more videos, see the links below. Tater Raider and quick thoughts on all 10 games in this video, and I chaptered it by game, so feel free to skip ahead if you want to. So let's go! First up is Xenoraptor. This is a fast-paced top-down twin-stick shooter. This particular game focuses on customization of your ship. You play through campaign levels and defeat bosses to unlock new items. Each boss has a different loot pool, which helps out in the early ground when you won't really have the gear to get very far. The customization options in the hangar are pretty cool. Weapons, engines, special weapons. The idea is to mix and match all of these things to find powerful combinations you enjoy using. And I also like the ability to change the color on my ship. Outside of the campaign mode, there's also an endless mode to play through, and the game also has a split screen couch co-op mode for multiplayer. Shoot 'em up style games are a type of game I usually love. I like that it tests a lot of basic gamer skills, hand-eye coordination, quick decision making, reaction times. The problems for me with this game came because it kept crashing on me. Combined with longer than average enemy wavelengths and levels, I just ended up being really frustrated during a large portion of this playthrough. These types of games work best as fast-paced pick up and play gameplay with quick rewards that keep you excited to keep playing. Even with excellent controller response, the crashes within the game just brought the whole experience down. 2 happy potato faces out of 5. The game does start getting better as you unlock more things, if it doesn't crash on you. Next up is Guwange, or Guwange, or Guwange. I do not know how to pronounce it. I remember buying this game years ago on a spring sale or a summer sale or some type of sale, and it's pretty much what I thought it would be. Top-down shooter style game with its own special twist. You control a kind of spirit outside of your main character that you use to reflect bullets and also slow them down, all while navigating the level with your main character. Defeat the enemies and the bullets you slow down turn to coins. I got a very old school style arcade feel with this game, which actually made a lot of sense after I did some reading. This game originally came out in arcades around 1999 in Japan. It wasn't released for Xbox 360 until 2010. This game is difficult to complete without continues, as was commonplace with game designs back in those days to get you to pump more quarters into them. It is fairly short as well, 6 stages with multi-phase boss battles. There are 3 characters, each with a small story to follow, and you can play through the game as each of them to see what happens. 3 happy potato faces out of 5 for Guwange. A short but sweet old school style shooter, nothing too deep, but the right amount of action, good pace, and difficulty to be enjoyable for me. Described as a crazy Korean bullet hell shoot 'em up, Shikhondo Soul Eater pretty much delivers on that description. The gimmick in this shooter was a kind of soul collection system, but also a way to power up those souls by staying close to bullets. By holding a button, your movement would be slowed down, but you would charge a sort of super move at the same time. It added a more challenging dynamic to the whole formula that I really enjoyed. The art style in this game was also really cool, but what the game was about, I don't really know. And I also can't show all the bosses because some of them were actually half naked. Some kind of gods or demons. I'm not really sure. The game didn't do a lot of explanation on the narrative side of things. You have 2 characters to choose from in Shikhondo, the Grim Reaper and the Girl. Each character's secondary fire is unique to them, but doesn't really change the overall gameplay or experience. You can't really go wrong with either pick. This game came with a standard arcade run, a local co-op mode, a boss rush mode, which I always liked, and multiple difficulties and achievements to work through. 4 happy potato faces out of 5. Everything comes together really nicely in this package. The gameplay is fun and satisfying, but it's not really made for kids though, so just be warned if you go to try it out. Mutant Storm Empire is an old Xbox Live arcade game, released all the way back in 2007. This game is more of a twin-stick shooter than a bullet hell shoot 'em up, but it's some quick fun all the same. Visually interesting and challenging. I'm not entirely sure of the premise here, but it felt like I was some sort of nanobot floating through the inside of an alien, trying to liberate it from evil infections or something. That's probably way off from what it actually is, but that's my headcanon for Mutant Storm Empire. There are 16 levels to play through with multiple difficulty options. There is also a couch co-op option. Outside of normal firing, you sort of have a kind of super laser you can shoot. This is a limited resource that you can't seem to charge back up during gameplay. So even though I found the controls very responsive and the base gameplay was pretty satisfying, there isn't a ton more here that would keep me coming back to this game. For a 17-year-old game though, it holds up pretty well. 3 happy potato faces out of 5. If you were a high score fiend or a couch co-op guy, this would be a game I would say go for, and it feels good for me to just get this game off the backlog, as I cracked my first achievement for it back in 2007, but just never got around to finishing the game. But it's done now. Sometimes the difficulty of a game is what can make it fun. That's usually the case for this genre of game, shoot 'em up style games. This is not the case with R-Type Dimensions. This is a small compilation of R-Type and R-Type 2 from the 80s with some updated visuals. I'm just not sure what didn't click with me for this game. I like that you get power-ups as you play. Killing enemies and getting better guns is something I enjoy with this type of game, but I couldn't quite figure out the gimmick. You get a little pod that can act as a second gun, and you can shoot it forwards or backwards when attached to your ship, and then call it back at will. Everything felt underpowered though for what was on the screen. When you die, your weapons reset, and you also lose any speed boosts that you might have picked up along the way. If the game base speed was a little bit faster, this might have been a game I could have gotten into a little bit more. These games are difficult enough as it is. I like to be able to feel like I can move and at least destroy something if I'm shooting it. This is probably what appeals to R-Type fans though, but this one just wasn't for me. Solid controls, fun visuals, and overall pretty good though. 3 happy potato faces out of 5. Maybe if I could have figured out the gimmick a little bit better, I could have done a little bit better in this game. I did beat it, it just wasn't super fun for me. Solar Shifter EX is kind of the definition of style over substance. It seems like they wanted everything to look really cool here, but not actually have any fun gameplay. Just a massive amount of issues with this game. Design-wise, it can never really seem to pick a lane. The gimmick is that you're on a phase-shifting ship that can jump to one of 4 different places on the screen as needed. The game does nothing to ease you into this mechanic, and the enemy waves that follow just don't really push the need to do it. I quickly figured out this game isn't about shooting enemies or dodging though. It's about being in the right spot to avoid everything. The one magic little spot during the wave where nothing can hit you and then you just hold down the shoot button and don't move. No power-ups during levels outside of health recovery. You can upgrade your primary and secondary weapons in the hangar between missions, but that's about it. This game takes away freedom of movement and tries to fit you into what it thinks are cool situations, but it never really quite works. The achievement for upgrading your weapons for the first time only has a 3% completion rate, and after playing the entire game, that isn't really a surprise to me. A game that I was excited about but left me disappointed. I read that it was created by one person, and that is impressive, but it doesn't mean the game's gonna be fun to play. 1 happy potato face out of 5. This was a big miss for me. Originally released in 1998, Raiden Silvergun feels like bullet hell shoot 'em up heaven. This feels like the classic game I was searching for when I decided to grab these all from the backlog and play through them. The pure amount of weapon options all at once is what makes this game so cool. Each weapon serving a different purpose or helping you stay attacking even if you have to dodge to some of the more difficult areas on the screen. The controls are airtight and the difficulty is through the roof. This is the type of game that makes you think, makes you react, and most times the reason you die is your own bad decision making. The game has a story and arcade mode and also has a local multiplayer couch co-op mode. There are some side options to make the game a little bit easier for you if you choose. Raiden Silvergun is a classic top-down shooter style and a game that I highly recommend if you're even slightly interested in the genre. I played the Xbox 360 version of this game, which is also backwards compatible and playable on current Xbox consoles. It also looks like this game was actually just released to Steam at the end of 2023, though the price tag is a little bit high in my eyes. $20 American and $25 Canadian. If you're a fan of the genre though, it's well worth the price in my eyes. 5 happy potato faces out of 5. This is an amazing video game, but this isn't one that cracked my top 50 list. That one's coming up soon. Sine Mora EX feels like a more modern, realized game. It is story-driven, and it's a story that's not for kids. The gameplay gimmick is time itself. You kill things to add time to your clock. I think the game would have been fine without this gimmick, but it's tied to the story, so it worked pretty well for the entire package. The graphics here are great for a smaller game of this style. Tight controls, and you pick up power-ups and items on the fly, which I love. You get to play as different pilots throughout the story mode, each with a different secondary weapon, kind of like a super weapon to get you out of jams, and the last mechanic of the game is the ability to actually slow down time. There's an arcade mode, score attack, and boss rush mode, so there's a good amount of replay content for people that enjoy what the game has to offer. Personally, I found the story okay, and I appreciated the ability to fast forward through things and the talking of the story parts, just for second playthroughs while unlocking stuff, and not having to sit through the same stuff that you've already seen a few times. This was one of the funner bullet hell type games out of the bunch that I did play, though not perfect. I found it hard to know when I was being hit at times. The visuals made it difficult to see enemy bullets. I think this was by design in some situations to force you into using the slow down time mechanic, but I found a lot of the time I just didn't really need to use the mechanic because the plane's base speeds were good enough to move around and dodge everything. 4 happy potato faces out of 5. Just a solid game here with a lot to offer to the genre. This is one I'll play through a few more times, I think. Raiden V or Raiden V starts out super crispy and very exciting, but as my playthrough went on, I kept noticing issues I was having with the game. There is a story in this game though. Halfway through I started kind of tuning it out because they literally talk the entire time you are playing. It becomes pretty annoying, honestly. I ended up just kind of ignoring it and then concentrating on shooting after a couple levels. They also joke a lot about coffee beans in this game. It just makes no sense. No real crazy gimmick to Raiden, just shooting, bombs, and gun choices. You have the choice between 3 ships to choose from with slightly different stats, and you can also modify and customize the starting gun loadout. During gameplay, you collect a colored power-up that can change the gun type you have mid-level. The power-up will cycle between blue, red, and purple on a timer, purple being a more crowd control flexible type weapon, blue being the straight-up laser beam, and red being traditional bullets. Each gun can be leveled up to 10 during your playthrough. The other mechanic you have is kind of like a call-in assist. It's like a super buddy that comes in to help you for a little bit, and the assist changes depending on the gun you currently have equipped. There is a meter you build up to unlock the ability, and it can help keep you alive in some of the more crazy areas and situations. Raiden was a pretty fun game for the genre. My biggest issue was the difficulty spike about 3/4 of the way through. There are some bosses that throw what feels like impossible things at you. I'm sure there are expert tactics and ways to navigate some of these things, but you kind of want to be brought into that and kind of built up to those points. There are also times when the enemies are shooting red and blue bullets at the same time, and the blue bullets are very difficult to see. Graphically, it would be nice to have these stick out a little bit better, especially when the background is flying by at like 900 miles an hour. No couch co-op multiplayer is also a bummer considering the price of the game. 3 happy potato faces out of 5. This started out as a real winner for me, but by the end I was just kind of happy to be finished with it and move on. Catch it on a sale if you're a fan of the genre though, as it's worth it for one playthrough. Oh man, this is the one. Ikaruga feels like a masterpiece within the genre. This was by far the most fun I've had with a top-down bullet hell shoot 'em up type game in a long time. The biggest reason is the gimmick. You have the ability to shift your ship between light and dark as you play through the levels. The concept is simple. Light means you can absorb light bullets and do more damage to dark ships. When you're dark, you absorb dark bullets and do more damage to light ships. You build chains killing enemies, which powers up your only other weapon option, which is a homing shot that you can use to kill the things behind you. Such a simple concept, masterfully designed into something that transcends a normal shoot 'em up style game. There's thinking involved, almost a puzzle-like quality to certain sections and levels. The reaction, dodging, and blow everything to crap gameplay is still there, but with the added polarity shift dynamic, it just goes to a level that I haven't seen in this type of game before. The boss designs are focused around the polarity switch mechanic, and to kill them you will need to master the patterns and switching in and out of light and dark at the proper times. Not only to avoid death, but to do enough damage to kill the boss in time. Visually, I think it's difficult to fully understand the concept. This is a game that must be experienced firsthand. You will die a lot, and this probably isn't a game for a newcomer to the genre, but if you have any interest at all in these types of shoot 'em ups, this is an absolute must-play classic. The easiest 5 happy potato faces out of 5. It's just, this is a masterpiece, and I think it gets a spot on my 50 favorite games of all time. So boom, that's it. With that, the Backlog project rolls on. 10 games, 10 tater raiders. Man, that was a crazy time. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind to yourselves and others that deserve it. We're on to the next one.